Welcome to Weather and Climate video. The first time through the video, you're going to take your own notes. Then you're going to watch the video a second time and fill out the note sheet from me. So in this standard, we are looking at climate and weather. So climate is kind of a big machine that's driven by the sun, because without the sun, there would be no people, no climate, no weather, and as the little cartoon shows, no penguins. Can you imagine a life without penguins? So the definition of climate is the average weather conditions over a long time. Usually meteorologists look at in a section of about 30 years together. Climate does not change much daily because you're looking at a large region or area in the world. So what are the three areas, or what are some of the areas that scientists look at when they're determining climate? Well, they look at the precipitation. So the average precipitation, the average temperature, the average humidity, the average sunshine, the average wind velocity, and then some other phenomenon like fog, frost, hailstorms that might occur in an area. So when we look at climate is driven by the sun, and there are also other factors that help determine the climate of an area that we'll learn about later on. So if we look at this picture right here, we kind of see the five major climate zones around the world. This picture shows tropical, dry, temperate, cold, and polar. So if you can find Michigan on that tiny little map, what do you think our world climate is classified as? Go ahead, take some time and check it out. You can pause the video if you need to. So one of the factors that makes different climates on Earth is the sun. The sun drives a lot of things on the Earth. Like I said before, we can't live without it. So if we look at the sun, the angle at which the sun rays strike the Earth, if the sun ray is indirect, like on the far right-hand side of the picture, that's when the sun is low in the sky. And that has it shows about a 26-degree angle. And as it says, indirect energy produces long shadows. So this is typically found in the winter. And we all know what the winter is like here in Michigan. All right, if there are shorter shadows, that means that the sun rays are more direct, and you're going to have warmer weather during that time of the year. So the sun also affects the seasons. And then if you have direct, like directly overhead sun rays, then there's not going to be any shadows, and you're going to have a really hot climate like the tropics. Here's another picture that illustrates it in a different way. So if you look at the sun and the rays, they travel in a straight path from the sun to the earth. The most direct rays strike at the equator. And the most indirect rays, they're going to strike at the north and south pole. And then the picture on the right shows the path of the earth around the sun and the tilt of the earth. Now those are what help to determine the seasons. All right, it's time to look at weather. Weather, simply stated, is the state of the atmosphere at a place and time as regards to heat, dryness, sunshine, wind, rain, all of those good things. We could also say weather is what is happening right now. So every day that we collect weather data, we're looking at what's happening right now. And then as we collect that data, then we would be looking at it over a period of time to see if it matches the climate in our area. So when we look at both of these, the climate and weather, we have to realize that weather is the daily precipitation, temperature, wind speed, all those things that we're collecting right now in class. And weather is what makes up climate because they have to use those things to determine the climate. So remember, weather is daily. It looks at the sunshine, the temperature, the storms, the rain, and weather is what is happening now all over the world. But if we look at climate, climate is determined by the years, so a chunk of years and what is average for those chunk of years. And then it also depends on where you live. What region of the world you live in will determine what climate you have. So how are climate and weather alike? And how are they different? That's what we're looking at right here. Compare means how they're alike, and contrast means how they're different. Now there's one other thing that I want to talk about so that we don't get things confused, and that's climate change. So scientists have talked about climate change and global warming, and usually they're used interchangeably. But we want to talk more about climate change because when people think about global warming, then when we have a winter like we had last year where it was sub-zero for several days, they say, well, global warming is not happening. So we as scientists call it climate change. So if you look at this picture right here, this picture has 11 signs hidden in the picture that show you some signs or clues of climate change. So go ahead and pause the video and check it out and see if you can find some of them. All right, so if we had scrolled over this picture on the website, then each of these things here would pop up. So climate change is when we look at the pattern of weather over a large period of time and we notice how the trends are starting to change. So we might see that changing rain and snow patterns begin to emerge, that the storms that develop are even stronger than they used to be. Climate change has also created changes in animal migration and life cycles. We have higher temperatures at times and more heat waves, which brings more droughts and wildfires. A warmer climate means less snow and ice, which means that in the polar regions of the world that the tundra or permafrost is starting to thaw. It also affects changes in plant life cycles. The ocean temperature overall is starting to warm because of the melting snow caps and polar ice. The sea level is rising. Warmer ocean temperatures also damage the coral life. And remember, everything is a delicate balance. One thing affects another thing, and then everything begins to snowball and change. So here's another little graphic. Remember, greenhouse gases, or the greenhouse effect in the earth, is what makes it able for us to survive. It makes the earth warm. But when the bad gases get trapped in the atmosphere, the warming rate increases. And that causes more evaporation, warmer ocean temperatures, the melting snow and ice, and the changing conditions for plants and animals, which then water falls down and creates larger problems that you see in orange. So if we look at this picture right here, they have taken core ice samples to determine the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere over time. We can see a huge spike in carbon dioxide from previously to today. And that spike of carbon dioxide is what shows us that the greenhouse effect is increasing because carbon dioxide can be a greenhouse gas. It's what helps to warm the earth to be a place for us to live. So I went over my 7 or 8 minutes, so sorry about that, but I hope you enjoyed the video and got a lot of information.